You are the GM of your favorite team. Which one of these players fits best for you? Which one would you rather have? Player A or player B? Neither are really wrong. Just depends on the situation. But hopefully, at least initially taking out knowing who they are takes away any bias, and you can just listen and see what kind of player they are and kind of go from there. Do you want to sign the aging all star who's going to be close to the max, or do you want to take a risk on a shorter deal with a younger player with some injury history? Let's find out who you prefer. Player A, 31 years old, four-time All Star, two-time All NBA. Last healthy season, 21 points, four rebounds, seven assists, and a PER of 22, which is about an All Star. And a defensive rating of 115, which is below average. He's not a great defender. Um, he's known as a terrible defender, and honestly, like looking into this, he's not good by any means, but he's also not terrible. Like he is below average, but not as bad as you think he would be. Um, he is 31. Um, this is probably going to be his last chance to really get a max deal, a big deal. So you're probably going to have to give him 4 years, 30, 35 million. So he's not going to be cheap. Um, he can't space the floor. He shoots less than 30% from three. Like he's not a great 3 point shooter, but he is a good shooter. If that makes any sense, he's very good on offense. He is a great facilitator. 7 assists a game as a two guard is very impressive. He is supremely athletic, a good finisher, great mid range game. Doesn't turn the ball over. He barely has 2 turnovers a game, which, considering how much he handles the ball, is really good. Um, and he does not get injured. He's been really durable over his career. He would be a great complement on a team that has a good defense to support him, or just doesn't care about defense and just wants to try to outscore their opponents. Um, so that's player A. Like I said, probably gonna have to give him a bit of a bigger deal. He is a better player than the next player we're going to talk about, but it's going to cost you a bit more. He is a bit aging as well. 31 is a bit older. Um, you're probably going to be paying him 35-ish million dollars a year at 35 years old. And if he can't develop a 3 point shot, then that could be a really big problem. But if you have the spacing and the right fit, he can score really well. He can facilitate. He doesn't make mistakes. He's a decent rebounder. Again, not a great defender, but a good option nonetheless. It's player A. Player B, 29 years old, 20 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, PER of 14, which is a good player. Fringe all star, I would say. A defensive rating of 109, which is extremely good. He's a very good defender. He shoots about 33% from three. So not great, but definitely better than the last guy. He can space the floor a bit better. Respectable enough to be a threat out there for sure. He's freakishly athletic. He's entering his prime, 28 to 30 ish. 31 is kind of a prime for most players. He has a lot of potential. He's had some really good seasons in the past, 2 time All Star, and all defensive team on his resume. And again, a very good player. However, can't stay healthy at all. He has missed a lot of games over the last few seasons, and is again coming off of a really big injury. There has to be some concern at this point, that maybe he's not going to be the same player he was prior. He is younger, but at some point, all his injuries have to catch up to him. But because of these things, you can probably get him for really cheap. To like in relation to player A and most players of his caliber. You can either A, take a risk and give him a bit of a longer term deal, but a little bit, yes, less yearly salary. Or you can kind of give him a shorter term deal with a little bit more. So I would expect 2, 3 years, 17, $20 million a year. So quite a bit cheaper than the last guy. But again, injury concerns are a big issue with him. So he has not been able to stay healthy, but when he is healthy, he has proved to be a pretty solid player, and he can continue to grow. Again, he's a really good defensive player. Um, he's crazy athletic. He can be a really good player. So think about it, make up your mind real quick, and then we'll dive into who these people are. All right, player A is DeMar DeRozan. Um, for sure the better player of the two. And despite him being a couple years older, he's probably the more safe pick. He would be a fantastic player on the Mavs, if the Mavs decide they're just going to outscore everybody, or the Knicks, and the Knicks have a good enough defense to kind of cover DeRozan's flaws. However, again, unless he develops a 3 point shot, spacing probably going to be a problem. So keep in mind if you picked him, you're going to need some good shooters around him so he doesn't clog up the paint. You're also going to be pretty confident enough in your defense to kind of cover him up. or again, you just don't care about your defense and you're just going to outscore people, which is fine too. Good player, very, very underrated player. Um, he is a good option. Again, he's going to want money, um, but he's a good player. And he has improved so much over his time in the NBA. He still doesn't have a 3-point shot, still hasn't developed one, but it's not out of the question that he can. His athleticism will eventually leave him, so he's really going to have to really stay relevant. But he's a great player, very efficient. He's not going to turn the ball over. Again, he's going to be a good player for your team and a great piece. I think he'd be great for the Mavericks, to be honest. They already have like the best offense in the league for like the last 3 seasons. He can't space the floor, so he's not going to be a great spot up shooter for Luka, but he can take some of the pressure off of Luka and be a really good second option. And then also with Kristaps, he doesn't have to worry about him as much either, because of how inconsistent Kristaps is and how often he's injured. And you don't even know if he's going to be on the team. He seems like he wants out of Dallas, but DeRozan would be a good option for them. And then for the Knicks need scoring, and they have plenty of defense to cover up DeRozan being a terrible defender. The only problem with the Knicks is, like, God, that spacing would be awful. Like, Randall's a good shooter, Barrett's an okay shooter, but that spacing would not be ideal. But they could probably figure something out. They could add other shooters and kind of go from there. But DeRozan would be a good option for the Knicks as well. So that's player A. Player B is Victor Oladipo. If you pick this option, you're probably kind of thinking it was a mistake, but hear me out. He can score and he can defend. He can shoot well enough to not clog up the paint, and he is younger. You can get him on a good deal, more than likely, and he still has a lot of room to grow. DeRozan is probably about at his peak. Again, he still needs to improve his shooting because his athleticism will go away. But take a flyer on Oladipo. What's the worst that can happen? He gets hurt again. He's off your books in the next year or two. But man, if he can stay healthy, he's in his prime. And you'd be getting an all-star player, someone that puts up similar numbers to DeRozan, if not better numbers than DeRozan. It would probably be $10 to $15 million cheaper. So that's another solid player to add to your roster. So when you look at Oladipo, right, it's not really just him you'd be getting, right? You'd be getting him, but then you'd also have enough money to sign another player that would be a pretty good complement and a third or fourth option on a team that could really round out that team that you're kind of trying to build. So he would be a good option. I personally, man, I'd probably take a flyer on Oladipo. I get it's riskier for sure. Like DeRozan is a safer pick, but he could be getting him for so much cheaper. And then you just add another player at that extra money, right? So Oladipo plus another pretty solid player is probably better than DeRozan, especially considering DeRozan's his shooting just scares me, honestly. Like I think it was 27% from 3. That's just not good, and that could improve. But he's also a terrible defender. Um, so I think I take Oladipo. Um, Obviously, coming from being a Heat fan, we had him. I think it was like 13 games before he injured himself again. He did not play well in those games at all, but he was still kind of getting accustomed to the system and stuff. But I like Oladipo. I think I'd probably take Oladipo over. But again, it does depend on the situation. But personally, I think Oladipo is my guy, just to sign somebody else too with that extra money. But yeah, that is the video. I don't know if you changed your pick after you figured out who they were or what, but I think it's a really cool idea to just kind of look at stats and take away the bias of the players. I know a lot of people probably don't want Oladipo on their team, but I honestly think he makes more sense here. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please leave a like and subscribe if you did. I'm going to make more of these. These are really fun to do. So you guys have a great rest of your days. Thanks for stopping in.